Welcome to World Builders Anonymous. Kick that world building addiction and actually finish that novel with your hosts Vito and John.
Pressed the button.
I have pressed my button also.
Resisting joke.
Alrighty.
Okay.
What?
Nothing.
Well, I have no beverage to crack open, for I'm in a car. So,
I don't either, for I am too lazy to go down and get one.
well, you know what I could do, though?
What?
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
I started my car. Much like we're starting the podcast. Oh.
We're not starting with that.
Okay, fine, whatever.
Welcome to the podcast, everybody. I might have clipped there. I don't know.
Yay, we're back.
We're back after a long hiatus.
many long moons.
Many moons. What was the reason
We
for
are.
our long moon hiatus, John?
Well, you see, I had a baby.
You didn't have a baby. I think we already made this joke, actually.
Oh, yeah, we did. That was, yeah, the last episode we did like 4 months ago.
Oh, drat. We're going to have to re-go through all of our jokes again before we realize we need to get some new stuff because we forgot that we did them all. So. Oh, great.
Well, for any of you who are curious, little Andy is doing very well. He is a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed little 5-month-old baby. He's almost 15 pounds. He's so big. But we thought it was a good time to come back and resurrect the podcast from the dead. And hopefully... Oh, then my phone fell over. It's fine.
Where are you right now, John?
I'm at the top of a parking garage in a car, in my car specifically.
The show must go on, even if it's during your lunch break
The show
at work.
must go on over lunch break.
That's
another
the level
reason
of dedication. What?
Oh, yeah. Another reason we've been on hiatus is because I got a new job with new hours, and it just wasn't all the way conducive to podcasting. But you know what? Lunch break at the top of a parking garage. We're here to stay. So
Let that be
let's
an
make it
inspiration
happen.
to you. You, too, can do anything, anywhere. Just put your mind to it.
If you climb to the top of the mountain, which in this case is a parking garage,
There you go.
You too can make your dreams come true.
Indeed. So, yeah, I thought first off, we just talk about kind of where we are with our stories after this long break, as I have not really been writing much until about 2 weeks ago. I started again, and it's actually been going really well. Have you done anything in the last few weeks, John?
I started writing again yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
I've had a few ideas and I've just kind of been stewing over the story as I've written it so far. And I've had a few ideas, and I started to put them into action yesterday, which felt really good. It felt really good to get back in and read stuff again. It was weird. It's really been almost 6 months since I looked at the story. And so some of it almost feels like I didn't even write it.
Yeah, totally. I love that feeling when you come back to something after a while and it's like, wow, I wrote this?
Yeah, it was
not
pretty
that
cool.
it's amazing all the time, but
yeah.
it can be definitely seeing it with new eyes and gives you a new perspective. Sometimes new ideas come, which has definitely happened for me a little bit in the last few days.
Yeah.
Well,
one of the jokes I wrote made myself laugh. It's
Oh,
like,
really?
I'm funny. Cool.
Yeah, totally. It's like I said, it's like someone else might have written it, and you're just looking at it for the first time again. Yeah,
sure.
that's super cool. Do you have with your new work schedule and everything? Do you have a plan for consistently writing, or is it just kind of going to be whenever you can get to it?
It's going to have to be scheduled. That's just the way everything works right now. If I don't plan for it, it's not going to happen. So it's not on the schedule yet, but it's going to be. And I think on Sundays I'm going to get up like an hour early, which for me usually would mean getting up at 5 or 5:30, and getting some writing in before I get ready for work. So whatever happens, there's going to be time for writing. So I'm excited about that. But before we start, really, I wanted to say to all of you, thank you so much for sticking around through this break. We've actually set record listening numbers throughout this, basically the entire break, with just a couple months ago being our best month ever. So thank you guys so much for listening and being here, and we're excited to bring this back to you.
Yeah, we've continued to get more messages from people sending us clips of their story to take a look at, and just comments and everything. It's been really cool to see that, even though we haven't been doing anything. So we're doing this for you guys as well, as well as for ourselves, to keep ourselves on track. So we appreciate that for sure. Yeah, that's super cool.
So getting back into writing, it's so crazy. Like we said, so I've written about 30,000 words up to this point over the course of the podcast, and again, haven't written like anything for the last 6 months. And just going over it again, I'm kind of impressed with myself at times. It's hard to like look at your own work and be excited about it sometimes. But like I was reading some of my stuff, I'm like, this is pretty good. It's not bad. I like it.
It's better than the alternative, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. But before we get into any of that, I kind of wanted to restate our purpose here for I think there's a lot of new people to the podcast based on the numbers we've been getting, and hopefully we're attracting new people as we go. So, Vita, do you want to kind of start off with that and kind of reaffirm what we're up to here?
Yeah, I was going to say at the beginning, too, we didn't actually really know what we were up to. We kind of had some idea of like this world building thing. You know, we would constantly get stuck, in world building and trying to decide little minutia of the magic system or the economic system or the government of the empire or something like that. And we would never actually finish anything. And I think I've found to a certain extent through this that was, a problem, but that wasn't itself the root of the problem. The root of the problem is that I didn't want to do the hard work of actually planning out what I want to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes. So that was like an expression of a deeper issue. So it's not just not world building. It's also actually sitting down and making yourself put words on paper when you don't want to do it, which is, of course, sounds like a just do it kind of thing, and it kind of is. But that's, I think, what I've kind of found this whole thing is the key to getting anything done. And I still haven't gotten a whole lot done. But I've been doing that, especially the last few days.
It really is like nose to the grindstone.
It really is.
Yeah, it's like
just
a nose to the grindstone. You have to just do it. It's do hard things. Our goal here with this podcast, now that we've now kind of figured out, which is what we want from it, is it's a motivating tool for us. We hope it's a motivating tool for you. We hope that we can learn and teach you guys along the way and learn from you as well. But as we think about writing and as we pursue writing ourselves and find mistakes and find good ways of doing things and bad ways, we hope that we can kind of come alongside you guys and you come alongside us, and together we all rush off into the horizon of completed manuscripts and published books and all kinds of good stuff. So that's what we're here for.
Totally. And let us know if you have any ideas for content types that you would want. I know in the beginning we were kind of all over the place. We had some episodes talking about what we were encountering in our writing. We had some talking about swords for some reason. Just like random stuff, world building type things, which seems counterintuitive actually when you think about what our goal was. But yeah, if you guys like that, we can do more of that. If you like just kind of talking about the issues we run into with our stories, we can do that. If you want to like episodes where we take apart bad writing and kind of talk about that would be kind of interesting. That's something we've talked about before. So yeah, let us know if you have any ideas for us.
But the long and short of it is we're back. We're hoping to keep this getting back to a weekly release. Thank you guys for sticking around through the break, and we hopefully will produce a show that you guys are once again very excited about listening to.
Totally. Part of my motivation for getting back into this too has been honestly some of the bad stories that have come out in pop culture recently. Most notably, I don't want to get too far into this because you could definitely go into it a lot, and we've talked about it before, but at the conclusion of the Star Wars trilogy, the new one, I was really disappointed with how that turned out, and it kind of made me realize if I want some good stories, I might have to make them myself.
Might have to write them yourself.
Not that I blame anybody individually for how those things turned out, because
Rian Johnson.
That was kind of the problem, was that no one person had enough control over the thing to actually make it a cohesive whole. True. But it just kind of made me think to myself, I can't rely on somebody else's story to, I don't know, scratch that itch, I guess. And so that's part of why I want to get back into this too for myself, because I just wanted to be able to tell a story that is comparable to what the stories that I've loved have been. The old Star Wars movies, a lot of the Star Wars
Right.
books, a lot of the books I've read. I want to be able to make something like that for other people to enjoy, and also for myself to enjoy. So I'm looking forward to hopefully getting better at it enough to do that. And in that vein, John, you had something you wanted to talk about today to get us back in the swing of things as far as more bad stories.
Yeah, and I'm always hesitant to point out writing that I don't particularly enjoy, because I don't want to throw shade on other authors, because I understand how hard this is. But
we don't have to say
I just
who it
wrapped
is.
up a book. Well, if I say what the book
But
is,
I'm gonna.
then it's implied. So, with that said, let's jump in. I just finished a book called Fate of the Fallen by an author named Kel Cade, and it's not a bad book, I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say, in my subjective opinion, because most people like this book. It's one of those books that has really good ratings on Goodreads, and then I read it, and I'm like, I don't quite get that. I didn't enjoy it, and I think I'm a more picky reader than a lot, and I wasn't always. I think I am now, partially because I'm trying to write, and I'm being very conscious in my own writing of mistakes that I don't want to fall into, and so I'm seeing a lot of those mistakes in when I'm reading, and it kind of turns me off of the book. But with that said, I wanted to talk a little bit about Fate of the Fallen, just in terms of some of the good things about it and then some of the bad things about it. The best thing about the book, and there might be minor spoilers in here, but it's not that big of a deal, is the idea is really interesting, the concept. It's basically a subversion of the Chosen One trope. At least it intends to be. There's a prophecy, ancient prophecy that is foretold by the elders that this Chosen One will save the world, right? But then the Chosen One dies, in chapter 2. And so then everyone else is kind of going well, now what do we do? Because we're all going to die. And that's a great idea. I love that subversion of the trope. And it really does lead you in, because I swear to you, the first bit of this book is the most cliched thing I've ever read. There's a character who is explaining the concept and the plot to the reader, and she just looks at the main character and says, "As you know," and goes off in this long expository dialogue. And as the reader, you're going, oh my gosh, what are you doing? And then it ends up being a subversion of the trope. Even so, I think you should avoid that kind of writing, because it is hard to get through. The problem is that the new main character who takes over the mantle of the Chosen One, even though he's not the Chosen One, is a complete Mary Sue. He is so overpowered for no reason that there's never a conflict where you feel like he is actually in danger. For example, he's a woodsman. That's his profession is a forester. And he's helped train someone, or he's been a sparring partner for someone with sword fighting, but he doesn't like swords. He's not a swordsman. And yet, he, at some point in the book, has a practice duel with the captain of the King's Royal Guard and ties with him. He's the best swordsman ever, but he's not, he didn't train his whole life. He's never been in battle or a real fight before, and yet you never feel that he's in any danger of being harmed because he always wins sword fights. That kind of thing.
Did you finish the book?
I did.
Is there at any point an explanation for why he's so good?
No.
Okay, he's just
the best.
He's just the best. Okay, cool.
All right. For the next 5 seconds, I'm going to give an extreme spoiler, sort of, for the book. So mute for the next, maybe 10 seconds if you don't want that. At the end of the book, he also becomes the most powerful magician ever to live.
Well, of course.
So,
but he's not the
nice.
Chosen One.
He's not the Chosen One.
Okay.
He's also not a magician until the very end of the book, and then he becomes one.
So that sounds like an attempted subversion of a trope, but in the end, you just stuck with the trope.
Exactly. That's what I was telling Tessa earlier. He ends up becoming the Chosen One just by merit of how unbeatable he is. You never feel like he's not going to succeed.
Uh-huh.
And
he's functionally
book,
the Chosen One. Yeah.
He's functionally the Chosen One. And he also, it's not just in his prowess in fighting that makes him a Mary Sue. He's supposed to be this kind of grumpy, surly type. But every time he comes upon a social situation which requires like anything of him, he is perfectly suited for it. So when he has to be charming, he's charming. When he has to be scary, he's scary. When he has to be intimidating, he's intimidating. When he has to kind of be meek, he's meek. Like, and he always knows the right thing to say, and he always like is very philosophical and wise and kind of morally superior, even though he's just this grumpy woodsman. He's supposed to be, but then he's everything he's supposed to be whenever the plot needs him to be something, he is.
Yeah, so he ends up not having any particular character of his own because he just kind of functions as a, all one-size-fits-all solution to every plot problem that comes up.
Which is a shame, because in the first bit of the book, I actually really like his character. Before he becomes sort of everything he needs to be for the plot, he is that grumpy, surly Forrester character who takes on the mantle of the Chosen One just because the Chosen One was his best friend. And that's a really nice introductory element to a story, but it's, in my subjective opinion, ruined by how good he is at everything. And another thing about this book is that it has like 3 or 4 moments in it where I swear I was not listening to it on Audible, and I checked out for 5 seconds, and I came back and I had no idea what was going on. Like, I checked out for a second when something normal was happening, and I came back and he's fighting a dragon. And I don't know where the dragon came from. This is another spoiler, because I think you'll find it really funny. But, for example, even when he loses, he wins. So he gets actually kind of beaten. He kills the dragon, but the dragon, like, burns his arm off.
Oh, dear.
Luckily, he's with this little magician lady who she flunked out of magic school, but she still
But she's
does
probably
magic.
good enough to heal his arm, I bet.
But do you know what she did? She couldn't heal his burn, but she could cut his arm off and replace it with one of the arms from the dragon he killed.
What?
So now he has a dragon arm.
Was
which
the
you would think would
dragon
be kind of
human
inconvenient.
sized?
Well, don't you know, Vito, that when you reattach another animal's limb to another animal,
It magically
takes on
resizes?
many of the characteristics of the animal in which so it becomes kind of a human arm that's a dragon, but it's also really strong. And also immune to swords, because it has scales.
Okay. Nice.
And what's most frustrating about that to me is, A, it came out of nowhere. It was never like hinted that this was possible before. It just kind of happened. But the most frustrating thing is it never actually causes him an inconvenience from this point on. Like, he just has a dragon arm now, and so that's cool. Like, he just kind of covers it up and no one ever notices.
No one's ever like, hey,
And
bro.
even when people do notice, they don't care. It's so weird. It's there's a good book hiding in this one, but there's so many weird choices that I don't understand. But anyway, the point of talking about all this is I wanted to highlight a couple things that made this book hard to enjoy for me, which was primarily the Mary Sue nature of the main character.
Do you want to kind of define what that means for people who might not know? Because I know I didn't know for a while until people started talking about it like a couple years ago related to Star Wars.
Oh, sure. So Mary Sue is a trope in I guess you'd just say media, wherein a character is so outrageously overpowered that they just overcome any situation that they enter in. And Rey from Star Wars is a Mary Sue. She's never held a lightsaber before, and yet she can go toe-to-toe with like a highly trained Jedi, Sith, whatever, and beat him. Like, it's overpowered to the point where it makes no sense. Because you can have overpowered main characters. I mean, by the end of the Aragon series, Aragon himself is hugely overpowered.
Oh, yeah.
But you saw him get there.
The magic system in that series lends itself to being just massively overpowered.
Right, but you did see him train to get there, and
Right.
him being there feels justified.
It's a progression, yeah.
Right, Rey just knowing how to use a lightsaber inherently is bad writing because it's not justified. There's no reason for her to be that good. There's no reason for main character in Fate of the Fallen to be an expert swordsman. He just is, and he is so that he can be what he needs to be for the plot. He's not what he is because he earned it. And it's something you should try to avoid unless you're really trying to make that happen for whatever reason. Generally, I wouldn't go there. But you should try to avoid a Mary Sue character because it disconnects the character from the audience. If the audience doesn't feel like what they're seeing is earned, by the character, it disconnects them. They don't feel like it's a real character. You don't get to see growth. They just are everything they need to be. They're a fully realized character. There's no evolution to get to the right place where they need to be. And the best part of storytelling is character evolution, in my opinion. You see the character grow and change and adapt and become what they need to be, not start out as what they need to be, they become it. And that progress is fun to watch. It's why training montages are so much fun.
When
you
done
see
well.
this progress when done well. And then you get to the end of it, and the character is more than they were at the beginning, but you saw why they're more. The why is a lot more interesting than the what in this kind of thing.
Totally, yeah. That's a good way to put it, I think, yeah. Anyway, continue.
So avoid those kinds of characters. Instead, as I said, show the progress. It's more fun to read a story about a character who starts out. I mean, it's, you know, the farm boy who grows up to take on the world is a fun story trope and a motif across so many different stories because it's narratively interesting by nature. When you start out from nothing, when you start out as Aragon dreaming of greater things, and he ends the series as this hugely powerful magician and dragon rider, that's a fun evolution to watch happen. Remember that we're interested in stories not for world building, not for plot even. We're interested in stories primarily, in my opinion, for character.
Yeah.
And you want to see that character grow and change over time. And that
Totally.
requires them to have something to grow upon.
And that's what I'm kind of facing right now in part of what I'm facing right now in trying to get back to my story is that I'm realizing that none of my characters really have that significant a flaw in the beginning of the story. They're just kind of the primary things that are affecting them are external to them. Circumstances outside of themselves, like their sister was taken, their father was taken and exiled, you know, they have to get them back, that kind of thing. But what do they have to overcome within themselves? I haven't really given them much for that. So that's kind of what I've been trying to figure out these last few days, how I can tie the external story to the internal story and make that as compelling as the plot itself. Because that's definitely a temptation. And I think when we think of a story idea, we don't tend to think of a character and how they grow. We tend to think of, especially in fantasy, a plot, overarching plot outside of the character's mind, I guess. And the challenge, I think, especially again with fantasy, is to figure out how to tie those two things together.
Right. And I had the word a second ago. I forgot what it was. Dysfunction within a character can be hard to write because your characters are your babies and you don't want them to have these flaws because you feel like it makes them unlikable sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have to remember, and I have to remind myself of this constantly, that a imperfect character doesn't become instantly unlikable. You have to really push it to get them to that point. Is it in the Blade itself? The character's called Glokta, right?
Yeah.
He's a hugely unlikable character in a lot of ways with regards to like who he is and what he does and his sort of attitude towards it, and yet he's a relatable character. So that you can really push it a lot farther than kind of it would seem that you could. But it can be something simple too. Like in my story, Darren he's not. It's not like he's a bad guy at all. He's a really nice guy, but he's sort of paralyzed into inaction in a lot of ways, and he's not assertive, and he's pretty shy and not willing to like take stuff on in a lot of ways. And I'm still working on how to write that into his character, but that's what I want. And by the end of the story, I want him to have found confidence and found self-assurance and grow into a leader. That's the arc I want for him. And that's enough. It doesn't have to be like a multi-front thing, but you just have to have something the character can evidently grow upon and become better as a person, what have you, by the end of the story.
Hi everyone, John from the future here. As it turns out, there are little tiny audiophile eating sharks that live in Vito's computer, and they munched up about 12 minutes worth of ones and zeros. So, yeah, we still wanted to get this episode out to you as soon as possible, so please forgive the bit of an abbreviation there at the end. We're both so incredibly grateful to you guys for your continued support and listening to the podcast. We're really excited to continue this journey with you. So we're back. Babies and airplanes have stabilized, so we hope to get this podcast back up and running every week, every Tuesday. So look for another episode next week. And in the meantime, you can find us on all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and all that stuff at World Builders Anonymous. On Reddit, we are WBA_podcast. You can email us with any questions or writing samples or what have you at wbapodcast@gmail.com. And then you can find us online at www.worldbuildersanonymous.com. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
This show is sponsored in part by Audible. Visit worldbuildersanonymous.com/audible to check out what the guys are listening to right now and to receive a free audiobook.